Hello all, we are going to continue our reading Mr. Stink. So chapter 6, Soap Dodgers. The next morning, Chloe pulled open her curtains. Why was there a giant O and a giant V stuck to her window? She went outside in her dressing gown to investigate. Quote Crumb was spelled out in giant letters across the window of the house. Elizabeth, the cat, pattered out with a rosette emblazoned with the words Crumb for MP attached to her jewel-encrusted collar. Then Annabel came skipping out of the house with an air of self-congratulatory joy that was instantly annoying. "Where are you going?" asked Chloe. "As a favorite daughter, Mother has entrusted me with the responsibility of putting these leaflets through every door in the street. She's standing to be a member of Parliament, remember?" "Let me see that," said Chloe, reaching out to grab one of the leaflets. The two Waring sisters had long since dispensed with please and thank you. Annabel snatched it back. "I'm not wasting one on you." "Let me see." Chloe pulled the leaflet out of Annabel's hand. There were some advantages to being the older sister. Sometimes you could use brute force. Annabel huffed off with the rest of the leaflets. Chloe walked back into the house studying it, her slippers moistening with the dew. Mother was always going on and on about how she should run the country, but Chloe found the whole subject so dreary and dull that her imagination would float away into the la-la land whenever the subject came up. On the front of the leaflet was a photograph of Mother looking incredibly serious with the finest pearls around her neck, her hair so waxy with spray that it would become a fireball if you put a lit match to it. Inside was a long list of her policies. Number 1, a curfew to be introduced to ensure all children under 30 are not allowed out after 8 p.m. and are preferably in bed with lights out by 9 p.m. The police to be given new powers to arrest people for talking too loudly in public. Litterbugs to be deported. The wearing of leggings to be outlawed in public areas as they are extremely common. The national anthem to be played in the town square every hour on the hour. Everyone must be upstanding for this. Being in a wheelchair is no excuse for not paying your respect to Her Majesty. All dogs to be kept on leads at all times, even indoors. Verruca socks to be worn by everyone attending the local swimming pool, whether they have a verruca or not. This should cut down the chances of verruca infection to less than 0. The Christmas pantomime to be discontinued due to the consistent lewdness of the humor. Jokes about bottoms, for example. There is nothing funny about a bottom. We all have a bottom, and we all know full well what comes out of a bottom and what sound a bottom can make of its own accord. Church going on Sunday morning to be compulsory, and when you do go, you have to sing the hymns properly, not just open and close your mouth when the organs play. Mobile telephonic devices to have only classical music ringtones from now on, like Mozart and Beethoven, and one of the other ones, not the latest pop songs from the hit parade. Unemployed people not to be allowed to claim benefit anymore. And those scum only have themselves to blame and are just plain idle. Why should we pay for them to sit at home all day watching or appearing on the Jeremy Kyle show? Giant bronze statue of Royal Prince Edward and his fragrant wife Sophie, Countess of Wessex, to be erected in the local park. Tattoos on anyone but visiting sailors to be banned. Tattoos can be dropped off anonymously at police station without prosecution. Fast food burger restaurants to introduce plates, cutlery and table service and stop serving burgers and french fries and nuggets and those apple pies that are always too hot in the middle. The local library to stock only the work of Beatrix Potter, apart from the tale of Mr. Jeremy Fisher, as the sequence when the frog Mr. Fisher is swallowed by a trout is far too violent even for adults. Football games in the local park are a nuisance. From now on, only imaginary ball to be used Only nice films to be offered for rental in blockbusters. This is to say, films about posh people from the olden days are too shy even to hold hands. To combat the growing problem of hoodies, all hooded tops to have hoods cut off. Video games rot the brain. Any video games or computer games or console games or whatever the stupid things are called, to be played only between 4 p.m. and 4:01 p.m. daily. Finally, all homeless people or soap dodgers are to be banned from our streets. They are a menace to society and more importantly, they smell. Chloe slumped down on the sofa when she read these last sentences. There was a loud squeak as she did so. Mother had insisted on keeping on the plastic covers the sofa and the armchair had arrived in, so as to keep them immaculate. They were indeed still immaculate, but it meant your bum got really hot and sweaty. What about my new friend Mr. Stink? Chloe thought. What's going to happen to him? And what about the Duchess? If he's banned from the streets, where on earth is he going to go? And then a moment later, wow, my bum is getting incredibly hot and sweaty. She shuffled her way sadly back up the stairs to her room. Sitting on her bed, she stared out of the window because she was shy and awkward. Chloe didn't make friends easily. Now her newest friend, Mr. Stink, was going to have to leave the town, maybe forever. She stared out through the glass at the deep blue endless air. Then just before her eyes lost focus in the infinite sky of nothing, she looked down. The answer was at the end of the garden staring back at her, the shed. This operation had to be top secret. Chloe waited until darkness fell and then led Mr. Stink and the Duchess silently down her street before slipping through the side gate to her garden. It's just a shed, said Chloe apologetically as they entered his new abode. I'm sorry, there's no ensuite bathroom, but there is a bucket in the corner there just behind the lawnmower. You can use that if you need to go in the night. Well, this is unimaginably kind, young Miss Chloe. Thank you, said Mr. Stink, smiling broadly. Even the Duchess seemed to bark thank you, or at least cheers. Now, continued Mr. Stink, are you sure your mother and father don't mind me being here? I would hate to be an unwelcome guest. Chloe gulped, nervous about the lie that was about to come out of her mouth. No, they don't mind at all. They're just both very busy people, and they apologized that they weren't able to be here right now to meet you in person. Chloe had carefully picked the right time to settle Mr. Stinkin. She knew Mother was out campaigning for election, and Dad was picking up Annabelle from her sumo wrestling class. Well, I would love to meet them both, said Mr. Stink, and see what people turned out. Such a wonderfully generous and thoughtful daughter. This will be so much warmer than my bench. Chloe smiled shyly at the compliment. Sorry, there are all these old cardboard boxes in here, she said. She started to move them out of the way to give him room to lie down. Mr. Stink gave her a hand, lifting some of the boxes on top of each other. When she got to the bottom box, Chloe paused. Poking out of the top was a shard electric guitar. She examined it for a moment, puzzled, then rummaged through the boxes and found a pile of old CDs. They were all the same, stacks and stacks of an album entitled Hell for Leather by the Serpents of Doom. Have you ever heard of this band? She asked. I don't really know any music past 1958, I'm afraid. Chloe studied the picture on the cover for a moment. Superimposed in front of a drawing of a giant snake stood 4 long-haired leather jacket type. Chloe's eyes fixed on the guitar player, who looked an awful lot like her dad, only with a mess of curly black hair. I don't believe it. That's my dad. She hadn't had any idea her dad had ever had a perm, let alone that he had been in a rock band. She didn't know which was more shocking, the idea of him not being bald or the idea of him playing electric guitar. Really? Said Mr. Stink. I think so. It looks like him anyway. She was still studying the album cover with a curious combination of pride and embarrassment. Well, we all have secrets, said Chloe. Now, what should I do if I require a pot of tea or a round of sausage sandwiches on white bread, please, with HP sauce on the side. Is there a bell I should ring? Chloe looked at him, a little surprised. She hadn't realized she was going to have to feed him as well as shelter him. No, there's no bell. You see that window up there? That's my bedroom. Ah, yes. Well, if you need something, why don't you flash this old bicycle light up at my window? Then I can come down and take your order. Perfection, exclaimed Mr. Stink. Being in the confined space of the shed with Mr. Stink was going to make it difficult for Chloe to breathe. The smell was especially bad today. It was stinky even by Mr. Stink's stinky standards. Would you like to have a bath before my family gets back? Chloe said hopefully. The Duchess looked up at her master with a look of desperate hope in her blinking eyes. It was the stink that made her blink. Let me think. Actually, I'll leave it for this month. Thank you. Oh, said Chloe, disappointed. Is there anything else I can do? Is there an afternoon tea menu, perhaps? A choice of scones, cakes, and French pastries? No, but I could bring you a cup of tea and biscuits, and we should have some cat food. Then I could bring for Duchess. I'm pretty sure the Duchess is the dog, not a cat. I know, but we only have a cat, so we'll only have cat food. Well, maybe you could pop into Raj's shop tomorrow and buy the Duchess some tins of dog food. Raj knows the brand she likes. Mr. Stink rummaged in his pockets. Here's a 10-pence piece. You can keep the change. Chloe looked in her hand. Mr. Stink had actually placed an old brass button there. Thank you so much, young lady, he continued. And please don't forget to knock when you return in case I'm getting changed in my pajamas. What have I done? Thought Chloe, as she made her way across the lawn back to the house. Her head was buzzing with more imaginary life stories for her new friend, but none of them seemed quite right. Was he an astronaut who had fallen to Earth and in the shock lost his memory? Or perhaps he was a convict who had escaped from prison after serving 30 years for a crime he didn't commit? Or even better, a modern-day pirate who had been forced by his comrades to walk the plank into the shark-infested water, but against all the odds had swum to the safety. One thing she knew for sure was that he did really whiff. Indeed, she could still smell him as she reached the back door. The plants and the flowers in the garden seemed to have wilted with the smell. They were all now leaning away from the shed, as if they were trying to avert their stamens. At least he's safe, thought Chloe, and warm and dry, if only for tonight. When she got up to her room and looked out of the window, the light was flashing already. All butter Highland shortbread biscuits, if you have them, please, called up Mr. Stink. Thank you so much. So we have finished actually 2 chapters, chapter 6 and chapter 7. And later on we'll continue with chapter 8.